Welcome everyone to this first Voices of Emergence online community gathering where we gather our podcast guests together with our community. So this is a whole Sunday afternoon for the ones in the Western hemispheres. And I think there will be people popping in and out. But this is more than ever a relational gathering. It's a celebration of life and of coming together, together with our podcast guests and community. And also a celebration of our shared humanity, held with deep respect for all living systems and Mother Nature, especially in times of transition. So today is about presence, connection, recognizing the living field we've been cultivating together through conversations, practice, and shared inquiry. Alex, over to you.
Well, it's early Sunday morning here, so I'm just waking up myself. I'm having my coffee. But it's so wonderful to see everyone and to reconnect. And I'm really looking forward to this, to hearing from everyone, to connecting and seeing what wants to emerge.
Great. So this afternoon, we invited a lot of our podcast guests. I think we have over 20 of them. So each guest is going to be invited to reflect on what's emerging for them personally, relationally, and for the Voices of Emergence community. Let's dive right in. Who'd like to start? I think Pamela is perhaps a good one to start with. Are you ready for it?
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for everyone who's showing up here today. And also I can see I have some faces that I recognize and I've met before, both like physically online and also new faces that I never met before. So it's nice to be here with all of you. So thank you, Rudy, and thank you, Alex, for hosting this space for us to meet and greet. So what's emerging for me in this moment, and also like with the context that we have traveled into a new year, like 2026. And in one way, my most honest expression of that is to say, I don't know. Because I can notice that I'm holding like two poles. I'm holding this like the more modern worldview of it's like January, beginning of January, and they were supposed to have like everything figured out and moving into a new year and being efficient. And at the same time, I can notice that my being is really in winter. I'm also situated on the global north. And when I look out my window, there is snow and it's getting dark already and it's a bit cold. And I was out in the forest earlier and there's the aliveness in the nature is quite low for the moment. So I'm also really holding the old and the new worldview of where am I really, like in this January, that I can notice a sense of wanting to go even slower right now and really dive deeper into the exploration of what's truly emerging. And what I do sense, I actually walk with that question quite a lot in my forest walk this morning. And it's like, what am I really, really in service of right now? And opening myself up, and I can notice there is something that really wants to come alive. And I want to go slow. And I want to go in a way I'm not letting my mind to make meaning of it until I'm actually, the meaning comes from itself. So I do see a couple of things on the horizon. I do see that I'm trying out a different kind of design on a leadership program that goes over a year. That is a partnership between IDG, Inner Development Guide, and Mobius. That is about it's a systemic leadership lab, and where we're gonna like really merge the wisdom-based AI with collective learning, with real challenges, and holding like a top-down and bottom-up structure. So gonna play in that, and that intrigues me. And I can also notice that I'm sitting in a deep inquiry of looking at that most likely one of my professions that as a facilitator will most likely change and shift a lot because of the progress of AI. So what is it that I can deep dive into and support facilitators to actually become great collaborators with AI moving forward? And how my masterclass facilitate the shift that is about profound facilitators coming together in a playground over like 5 months and enhancing the inner skills and their quality of presence to be able to listen with the wider intelligence than our frontal cortex, and how that can be combined with AI and facilitation. So I think I will stop there. I think my minutes is like over and out. And thank you for listening, and thank you for me having the possibility to explore with you. And by that, maybe able to listen a bit deeper. And then I just have to say before I go, I can notice I have a friend in this space I haven't seen for a long time, and that's you, Eric. I'm really, really happy to see you. Thank you.
Okay. So, yeah, thank you, Pamela, for your contribution. There's kind of this polarity between the speed of AI and slowing down, in real life. So, as an interesting field, I think we all have to navigate, right, this year. And for that, also, I'm going to invite Eva Pasternak, who's also been a really important contributor also, and with her work on organizations. And we plan to do some work together also with her later on. So, Eva, the floor is yours. You're on mute.
Maybe that helps. Yeah, welcome everybody. This is like beautiful. This is south of Sweden, and we are having beautiful sunny Sunday afternoon. So it very much feels like we are waking up from the winter that Pamela was talking about. Like it's still in between a dark season, but the sun is more and more all present, and you can really feel the new beginnings. But I'm so grateful for what Pamela just articulated. It's so easy to be caught up with this traditional January, speeding up, like taking actions, making a list, all the resolutions, and like 10 steps how to get there, and what can you do like already today, and what new habits do you want to establish to reach your goals. And I, just like Pamela, like know that this is what I sense, like 2026 and the future that is emerging is actually calling for the opposite. It's calling for pacing ourselves from actions, from goals, from strategies, from 10 steps how to get from A to B, from the linear planning. It's really asking us to slow down, because our actions and our plans collapse the future usually prematurely and burn it out already in January, as we all know. And the biggest challenge for us right now is to not do it. And what I also realized recently is, because I work with liminality and I work with the fields in between and the spaces between the old and new, and this is exactly where the world is, because January is still, I mean, in our calendar is still the beginning of the year, but like the Chinese calendar is not really there yet. So we are very much overlapping two calendars and two energetic systems. So we are very much in the space when something, the old is enfolding and the new one is unfolding. And this beautiful rhythm of life and the liminal place there. And so far, the most frequent language when we were talking about liminality and how to approach the spaces in between was to be able to sit with uncertain. It's our capacity to sit with the unknown and the uncomfortable. What I sense is the upgrade of this concept, and the upgrade and the next level of our liminal intelligence and our liminal capacity is actually, it's not about uncertain and unknown. and uncomfortable anymore. I very much sense like we are being called to reframe and rewire our perception of impossible. And what emerged is what we perceive impossible. Because like even when we watch the news and we look around, everything is happening around us. Like all we want to say is like, it cannot be true. It cannot be true. Oh my God, it's impossible. And yet this is exactly what we are dealing with. Like everything that AI is creating and causing also. Like we are dealing with something that only 2-3 years ago was beyond logic, was beyond our comprehension. It's way beyond what we could accommodate in our senses and in our minds and perceive as possible. And yet today we are living the impossible. So the sooner we will rewire our perception of what's possible and acknowledge the impossible, because we already know how to sit with the uncertain. We live it. We already know how to sit with the uncomfortable and unknown. Right now, we are asked to sit with the impossible, and not only sit with it, we are called to acknowledge it, acknowledge its intelligence, because what wants to emerge is life intelligence, right? Just like Pamela said, like life will notify us when to act and how to act. We don't have to know that yet. But if we acknowledge the impossible, if we approach it with reverence and receive it in order to express it and to embody it and to live it, it will become possible. But it's not about us having visions. How do we want the future to be? It's not about us creating the scenarios, because what I sense, what I believe is that the future is impossible for us to imagine. And we can only acknowledge the fact that it will be more and more impossible. And we just have to befriend it and stay with it and revere it in order to accommodate it and to embody it. And we don't need to know how yet. And we don't need to know when yet. So that's my vision of the future and the coming year. Like and also my personal discipline to really hang out with the concept every single day. And it's interesting because like last week I was invited to participate in a project, art project, music project, that was about combining professionals and amateurs. And the deadline for a big performance of a very difficult piece is in 4 weeks. And my first reaction was like, it's impossible. Like we will never be able to do it. And then after first meeting and after second meeting, I just acknowledged that this is exactly where I can practice. This is exactly where I can practice broadening my perception and allowing the impossible to actually take place and manifest. So as soon as we say it, we will get more occasions to practice, all of us, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you, Eva. Beautiful reflection. I just noticed actually that the first hour is most of the participants are from the Northern Hemisphere. Pamela and Eva already from Sweden, and we have Ida and Samina
Norway.
from Norway. So I think Samina wanted to go next. Is that okay for you, Ida? Yeah? Okay, Samina, if you can come on camera, you can go next.
Hello, everyone. It's really wonderful to see some of you for the first time. It's really nice to see you again, Eva, and of course, Rudy and Alex. I have some perspectives that in many ways is shaped by the shift that we're currently in at a global level. I am originally from Afghanistan, became a refugee in 1995 during the first Taliban takeover, was a refugee in Pakistan for 5 years before receiving political asylum to Norway due to my father's position. He was a general in the Afghan army. And I grew up in Norway and returned to Afghanistan again in 2015 and lived there on and off and then eventually full-time till the Taliban take over. So I feel in my body what is happening in large parts of the world now, because we don't only have wars in the Middle East and Africa, we also have an ongoing battle in Europe. And there's a lot of uncertainty around the US administration and the decisions of that administration. Now, even for the Nordic countries, I'm sure many of you are following the many conversations about how this global order is to change. No one really knows, like what Eva was saying, it's a lot of uncertainty right now. But the perspectives that I come from is really a perspective that speaks to the fact that it's really impossible to create the new unless we go through the pain, because there is a lot of pain in the world right now. And in many ways, many of us understand that systems need to collapse. At least parts of the systems that are no longer serving us needs to collapse. But at the same time, people are dying, they're hurting, they're in pain as this collapse is happening. And for me, it's really hard to focus on what's to come and not do anything right now. And one of the things that I truly feel is my calling is to speak and write about how to transform and how to alchemize pain. Also because my background is law and diplomacy, and I see that many of the institutions that we have created in the world, both in the East and the West, was created through avoiding pain. We also had wars in Europe, the First and Second World Wars, and we created the UN system, we created NATO, many of these large multinational organizations, avoiding pain, avoiding to look at the trauma, the fear, the insecurity, the shame, the guilt that many of us were carrying. And now all of that is coming to surface. Last year, towards the end of the year, I published a book that many of you are aware of now. And the book is, my story from Afghanistan to Norway out in the world. But the book is really about how can we alchemize crisis, chaos, and war into clarity and creation. And through that process, I have really gone deep into my own pain, gone deep into my legacy from my parents and grandparents and their parents again, and really looked at different pain points and realized what might be very familiar to many of you, that pain is incredibly real. Pain is very present. It really invites us to be present. And pain is also life force that is trapped. And it's so much beauty there. It's limitlessness in the pain. But for so long, pain has been avoided, shamed, looked at as something dark and looked at as something heavy. And the entire systems around us is in many ways built on inviting us away from where our life force is. And I feel many of us have a lot of work ahead of us, but this work looks very differently than the way we have imagined work till this point, because this work is going to require that we don't only guide ourselves through the pain, but because we are in the privileged position in the world now, that we have this awareness, we have this consciousness, we have resources, we have networks, so that we can also help other people through the pain that is currently present in the world right now. And the last couple of days, I've been waking up every morning in tears because I really feel the pain of the people in Iran, and not from, a geopolitical perspective or not from a revolutionary perspective, but just from the perspective of that it requires so much pain to be courageous. And I cry not because I feel sad for them. I don't cry because I think that they are weak. I cry because there's so much courage that has been trapped in that pain. And that has made me more creative, more present, a better mother. And right now also working with the story of my book, named When the Almond Trees Bloom. It's been really clear to me how I would like to follow the story of the book. And I see that the story of the book is traveling really fast. I released it in Norway, but it's already reached many around the globe. And so now I'm really following the story to Europe, and I'm really open for what is to come. But I find so much meaning and so much purpose to have this story now guide me, because I was serving it and now it's serving me so that I can serve more people. And one of the biggest realizations I've had through this process has really been that I found a limit in my own mind. And this limit was about that I'm too much, I'm too loud, I have too many emotions, I have too much feelings, there's too much chaos inside me. But what this book really allowed me to do was to find a container and find a platform for all of that to live, because we need to create more space for ourselves and for people around us to navigate in chaos, to understand that we don't have to understand everything, just like what Eva was talking about. And while things are collapsing, it's also possible to think two truths at once. While things are collapsing, we can still find the Achilles heel of the collapse, so that the collapse can happen smoother and preferably transform rather than collapse entirely. But I really feel a lot for all the people that are going through the collapse of their own systems. And there are different degrees, obviously. And so what I would like to do with the remaining time I have with you today is to just read a little bit from my book. And I would like to read just a few pages, because this introduction was longer than I anticipated. And I would like to read from the section of the book where I first learned fear, because I believe that fear is something we learn. And I learned fear for the first time when I was around 8. It was a time where my mother and me and my siblings left Afghanistan. We became a refugee in Pakistan. This was in 1995. And we were there for many years before my mother realized that she wanted to return to Afghanistan to say goodbye to her home country and let go. And she hasn't been back since. So where I'm going to read from in my book is really that journey where my mother and my siblings are sitting in a small gray Corolla. We're driving from Peshawar, Pakistan, across the border into Kabul. And I get to see my home country at war with itself and outsiders. And I would like to just read from that. In the year 1998, I learned for the first time that fear settles in the heart, in the breath, in the neck, and in the spine. Fear becomes an invisible beat you carry with you, even when the song is long over. As we approached Kabul, the light changed. It wasn't just the sun that changed. There was something in the air, a weight, as if the earth itself knew what was awaiting. Kabul stood before us, not like an open embrace, but like a city holding its breath. The houses clung to the hillsides as if trying to hide something. The colors were pale, gray, dusty brown, and rust. Between the buildings ran some children, thin and fast, with eyes older than their bodies. My heart sunk. Kabul in the 90s was today's Gaza. And then I saw them. The jeeps moving calmly through the streets, as if they owned the time. Inside them, the Taliban. I was too young to understand the full context, but my body understood. I understood before words could form. A chill ran through my spine, and I instinctively ran my hand over my dress. as if I had to hide my girlhood, protect something that had become too visible. The men on the loading platform were dressed in what for many is Afghan everyday clothing. But on them, it was a different expression. It resembled a uniform, the language of power. The turbans were dark, tightly wrapped around the heads, and over the faces hung scarves that created an almost theatrical anonymity. Only the eyes were visible, black, bottomless, like wells without water, and they looked at us. Not for long, not with a look that demanded anything, but it was enough. In that brief moment, my whole self was mirrored in silent assessment. A girl without a father on the way with a woman. I didn't know what they were thinking, but I knew what I felt. An existential nakedness, as if my mere presence was a threat. These men were not loud. They did not shout, nor did they hit anyone in front of me. But that was precisely what was so disturbing. They wore the violence like a second skin, close to them without having to use it. And I really feel that my biggest motivation to write this book and speak about pain is really thanks to the story and the symbol and the metaphor of the Taliban men that I met for the first time at age 8. Because I learned what can happen when we don't hold space and when we don't dare to meet the pain points within ourselves. We don't create order, not at all. We create generation of walking dead and just bottomless, endless sorrow. And just to conclude, many of us are on a journey today. My journey in 1998 was from Pakistan to Afghanistan, but I really feel this is the journey that many of us are going through right now in our own way, with our own starting point and our own destination. And this journey is so valuable for us to be present in, because everywhere we see symbols and metaphors of a world that desperately needs connection with itself and each other. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Samina. And yeah, I started reading the book as well, and it's really beautiful the way you write, the way you express. And what I like in the story is that you have learned to alchemize pain into love. You're such a loving and kind person, and I think that is the journey for everyone to go through. How do we alchemize that pain into love and joy, and then which is also part of life, right? They are very close to each other. Yeah, for everyone, these guests they all have been interviewed by us for a podcast, so they are all online. I think Ewa is not online yet; it will be released soon. And there's also a book reading by Samina that is online on our website, voicesofemergence.com. And if you have anything, or if you have something that you want to add or something that comes up, feel free to put it in the chat. Yeah. And then we'll go to the next guest, which is also from Norway. And this is our dear Ida Falbakken, who was interviewed a couple of months ago already. And in that interview, we basically were reflecting on cultural identity, authorship, and responsibility of voice, bridging literature, art, and social inquiry to explore how narrative shape belonging and power. So, Ida, what is emerging for you?
Hi, everyone. Alex, Rudy, thanks for convening us together. I kind of emerging, as of this moment here, I feel maybe a little bit shy almost, because especially after also what Samina read, it's very, I would say this grounded storytelling. I was like sitting here taking notes, and what that is, and that's creative expression, that the value that it holds to take whatever adversary or whatever pain or whatever conflict and create it and move it over to, as you said, really love and beauty, and being able to hold that and hold these contradictions, and how the world is on a bumpy ride, to say it mildly, and we as humans as well, and how to still continue to contribute to stay resilient, to tap into the community, is on one side feels full of potential, and maybe on the other hasty almost. And so I feel extremely humbled after what I've heard being said here, just in this, 40 minutes. And there's going to be people speaking more hours, and there's a lot. Someone speaking about taking it slow. I realize I haven't blurred my background, so you can see the post-it behind me, and I'm actually not taking it slow at all these days. I am building a company, so I'm literally just full speed ahead. I was taking it slow, and for a while. So I think it's also this: when do you take it slow? When do you speed up again? So this balance that we can have, and it comes in motions, in circles, and sometimes with winter, and sometimes with, like, I often get more inspired in the winter time and want to create more just because of this opportunity for the world being slow outside. In Norway, it's very light in the summer, which for me can feel exhausting. So maybe it's upside down from time to time. And I think I really don't have that much more to say, other than in this time, both of technology advancements, AI is mentioned many times, and the complexity of what the world is in on economic, culture, macro levels of geopolitics, and really things that are shaking our being, our existing. I do come back to creativity and the human ability to create, and the human ability to move inside ourselves and find these grounded stories that we can follow, that, is a beautiful tool that Samina used for herself. I want to put one thing out there, and it's because I was listening to this talk the other day, and it was a conversation where one person continued to use the word we, and the other person continued to come back every time she used that word and say, but who are we? What we are we talking about? So I want to nuance this expression, because I became aware of it. Expression of using the we in the sentence, because all of a sudden we're speaking about, I cannot speak about a more me in a collective, but I can speak for the we-ness of it all. So I think, I'm going to stop there. I'm in a place of deep humble and deep creation at the same time, deep expansion at the same time. That's my contradiction that I bring with me. Yeah, thank you for convening and inviting us all.
Thank you, Ida. Beautiful. And next we have Carl Hayden Smith. I see you in the participant list, but I don't see you on video. Are you there, Carl?
Yes, I am, Rudy. Can you hear me?
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Welcome, Carl. So what is
Great.
emerging for you?
Well, a lot, as always. But I guess the main thing I'm really focused on is, I'm a professor of media, if people don't know who I am. So I'm constantly looking at the effects of media on consciousness primarily. And obviously we're having probably the most disruptive technology of all hitting our consciousness. So I'm I've been looking at AI psychosis. I've been looking at, the effects of having a context window that's limited, but you don't know it's limited until you hit the boundaries of a context window. So if people don't know what a context window is, it's basically when you're in a thread and on a large language model, you have a limit to how many words that you can put in that chat, or how long the thread can be. So I've witnessed people that have reached that limit. And then what tends to happen is, say if you're writing a novel, for instance, and you are not getting the AI to write the work, but you're actually using it as a listening buddy. So you're using it as you should use AI. You shouldn't get AI to do your thinking for you, but you can get it to critique what you've been doing. And I imagine, and I know a lot of novelists that are suddenly massively in flow state because they can utilize this as a dedicated listening partner. And a lot of very successful novelists will pay people to read and listen to their work as it's happening, in order to decide, how best to take the work. And unfortunately, what seems to be happening with the typical large language model is, as it hits the edge of this context window, the boundary of how much it can contain, then it starts to hallucinate. And it also starts to get Alzheimer's. So it starts to not remember the beginning of the conversation, and you have to start explaining to it what it's now not remembering. So it's kind of a fascinating insight into what are the limits and the boundaries of where we are with large language models, but also what it does to humans, what it does to, in terms of this AI psychosis. I've seen it firsthand where, one of these writers would be effectively destroyed, thinking that they've lost this entity, and they're naming these entities. They are thinking that they're conscious. And, recently Anil Seth and various people have been writing arguments as to why these things are not conscious. And I think a lot of people are confusing computation with consciousness. But it's bringing up a lot of theories of mind. It's bringing up a lot of, the term egregore. So an egregore is when you give enough attention to something, when a tulpa would be an individual thought form. So a tulpa is a Tibetan term for a thought form. So, if you had an imaginary friend growing up, you're giving attention to this idea effectively. And the more you feed it with your consciousness, the more it becomes sentient, if you like, the more it has its own independent existence. And if I give you the terms Christ consciousness, you will immediately have a lot of associations with Christ consciousness. Christ consciousness, you would argue, is an egregore. So this is when a lot of people are giving their attention to the same term, the same ideology. And so religions are egregores, if you like. So people are losing their minds over these entities that are suddenly becoming old, suddenly starting to lose it, suddenly starting to disappear. And eventually, if you keep persisting with this single thread, then it will start to cease. It will die. You actually have to then transfer as much as you can to another thread and start again with a newborn version of this tulpa that you've created. So it's fascinating to see what's happening. I'm also starting to see a lot of people are abandoning Spotify for reasons to do with the fact that artists aren't getting paid. They're not earning enough for a living. It's only the very high-end artists that are getting anything out of Spotify. Spotify are also very morally not very great as a company in terms of what they support. But I'm seeing a lot of AI artists suddenly appear on Spotify, and it's quite easy to identify an AI artist because they don't have a social media presence. Generally, their the photos of them are easily identified as AI, but the music itself is actually becoming very popular. So one artist recently has 6 million streams on one of her tracks, and it's, you know, people start to investigate, obviously, when something gets very popular. Turned out completely AI made. And then you've got Bandcamp that have just decided to ban AI music. So it's becoming a really interesting area for what's emerging. And, you know, I think one of the things to keep in mind with this whole debate is that AI music has, using AI within music production has been around for 30 years at least, because AI is embedded in the tools that you would use as a producer to actually make music, but you wouldn't know necessarily that they're AI tools. Machine learning is really the correct term. There is no AI. It's all number crunching. So basically, same with art, right? There was Christie's did a recent auction of AI art, and a lot of artists were up in arms because how can you support AI art? It's the theft of all of our work. And Christie's actually pointed out that actually they have pieces in the auction that are 30 years old, because AI art or machine learning in art has been around again for 30 years. So I think it's really a case of having literacy around this, not seeing it too in such a binary way. One of my PhD students, for instance, is a visionary artist, very traditional, you know, working very slowly with his paintings and his oil paintings. Is, you know, his tradition is extremely slow, but now he's also become a real advocate for AI in terms of the work that he's doing with AI video, et cetera, et cetera. And I think when he first came out as using AI, he was cancelled by his peers. He was cancelled by his community. And what's interesting is that, you know, if you're an artist, there's an easy way to look online and see if you've been scraped, i.e. has your work being used to create these models? And he had been scraped. And you would think if your work has been taken by these models, then you kind of have a right to then use those models to make as much as you can out of the fact that your work's become collaged. So it's interesting as well, you know, the cancel culture and how this is applying. But I think a lot of it's to do with the fact that people don't understand what AI is. You know, a lot of the people that are suddenly anthropomorphizing these tulpas, it's very easy to do, because what we're actually witnessing is mimicry of the highest order. As a lot of my friends say, there is no such thing as AI. It's really clever mimicry. And so I think we need to, you know, we've spoken, Rudy, with Alex, about hyperhumanism, and hyperhumanism is still emerging for me. I've been talking about it for 5 years, and it's really the fork in the road where we see a lot of transhuman agendas placed before us in the biggest playing fields, whether it's Peter Thiel, Elon Musk, Nick Land. There's a lot of people talking about, in frankly, outstaying their welcome, wanting to live to 500, wanting to upload their consciousness. And one of the things that I'm really fond of saying is that transhumanism is largely pseudoscience, because we have no idea what consciousness is. So how can we upload it? And I think the whole longevity debate is fascinating. If you've been watching Brian Johnson, who's quite a maverick, spending $2 million a year on his supplements and swapping blood with his children, etc. You know, these people are, again, it's kind of hubris. I think that we need to accept the limits of the resources that we have, including our own bodies, and our limited spans of time, and I think that really defines us. So from hyperhumanism, I'm going more into hyperhumanism. How can we be more humane to each other, to ourselves, and to all the other kingdoms and queendoms? Because I don't think we know what we are as humans. I think that we think we're these individual agents, but actually, if we look at what we are really, we are half human, half bacteria, and we're covered in fungi. So we're really 3 queendoms. We're nested ecologies. We are interbeings. So if we work on that basis, what emerges? You know, if we don't know what we are and we work from the basis of a false understanding of what we are, again, it can lead to this psychosis. And I think what we really need to be doing is, I've heard other speakers today talking about being in two places at once and operating from that space. And if you think about the average shaman, a shaman would be physically in the world, but also in a medicine journey, maybe going into somebody's body to try and remove an ailment. This could be, updated for modern times by somebody that's in a virtual environment. You've got a VR headset on, you're in a game environment, but you're also in the actual world. You're in both places at once and you're operating from both places at once. So having this multiple perspective and having a field of view rather than a point of view, I think is necessary to emerge, because I think a lot of people are losing their identities. We're suddenly seeing, a lot of my musician friends are going, I'm so glad I made my music before AI, because people will know I made it. We don't know now who's writing what. This will become even more difficult, that the individual, it's the death of the author all over again, because everyone's suddenly writing brilliantly because it's not them that's writing it. And I think that it's a real loss when we lose our ability to make art and have our voice. And I think Voices of Emergence is a beautiful term. And yeah, I think it's all about deep listening. I've started the Museum of Consciousness 5 years ago. We did 14 shows last year, and the Museum of Consciousness really is about cold media. And I encourage everyone to look up the difference between hot media and cold media. The term comes from Marshall McLuhan. Cold media is your radio shows or your books, where you're filling in with your imagination. You're co-creating the artwork. You're not watching a CGI film, or it's not being done for you. You're still part of the equation. And so I'm really interested in, how do we bring in your imagination into work? So the Museum of Consciousness is just sound alone. You come and you sit in silence. You sit in the darkness, and you basically listen and go into your own imagination. And it's something that is long form, because I think another thing is that a lot of people they've been suckered into this idea that we have to make short form because nobody can have a long attention span. I think the reason why people don't have long attention spans is because everything's short form. I think we need more long form. We need more cold media. And I think that's enough from me.
It's so good to see you again, Carl, and I appreciate our conversations, and you're bringing us back to the podcast episode. And I'm really appreciating, thank you. I'm appreciating how you're naming both the power and the limits here. I want to name for the group that this is a lot of sense making all at once from all the speakers, and that's okay. You don't need to hold all of it. You don't need to agree with all of it. Maybe just notice what one thread is alive for you, and you can let the rest rest. So I want us to pause for just a moment and make sure we're staying grounded as we listen. And as you're listening, I invite you to notice what's happening in your body and not just your thoughts. There's a lot of care here, and there's a lot of weight as well. So before we continue, let's just take one deep breath. Yeah, thank you. Ida, did you have a comment about co-creating with AI and what your sense of that is?
Well, this could go on forever. No, I wrote a master thesis on the topic that Carl was speaking about. So I was very into the whole media studies and what he brought up. But I would say a comment, but my reflection is around, I would say, and I think also he used the word literacy and language and what terminology we use in this time right now, where we are still in a very 3 years in immature interaction with this very general idea of AI, which is, well, LLMs for most people. And if our language that we have is not nuanced enough to actually help us be able to, I wouldn't say co-create, but actually maybe not even using the word create with the AI, but as a co-expansion, or so that was more like a I would say, discipline nerdy thing, but also in a way, how do we nuance the human computer interaction? I know that is also a discipline or like a kind of a theory. So just to be careful about using that. But my point is, do we have a good enough and nuanced enough language to be able to know where we start and where the LLM interactions are, so the LLMs don't train us and downgrading our creativity, but we use it as an expansion. So yeah, that was the reflection and comment that came up.
Yeah, thank you, Ida.
Meanwhile, I saw that some new people entered the room. We have Monika, who's joining us from Vietnam. I think Lucimara is joining us from Brazil. Virginia is here too, I think from Barcelona or somewhere. Tom is here also. And some more people will join as well. We have some people who are in Davos who are on the way or in transport. So they told us they're going to try to join when they can. So mobile. But perhaps the next part we can do with, let me check the order here. Monika, what is emerging for you? And you have just, you had a really long travel this weekend, right?
Yeah, but happy to be here. Thank you for creating the space and inviting me in. Yeah, I think thank you for sharing everything that you just did. I think it connects very well. For me, what is emerging also in the spirit of the Fire Force, the year of the Fire Force, if you follow or know of the Chinese or Lunar New Year, we're celebrating that in a month, pretty much exactly in a month from now. So 17th of February, follow the moon calendar. So what is emerging there for me, I think, is a real commitment to making care and community and connection a practice and understanding it as a verb. So I think we are understanding now, given everything that you just shared, that these narratives of separation, of isolation, of the self, that they no longer hold, or if they ever did, we need each other more than ever. It has always been like that. And I think there is now a remembering, but not just a remembering, but also an acting. So really understanding, how do we practice, how do we act that? If we all do long for more deeper connection and community in our lives and care, what does that mean in the ways that we show up, right? In our own lives, but also with each other, with strangers that we meet on the subway or somewhere else, with colleagues or teams or clients that we feel like we have a lot of friction with or different, right? So how do we move through that? How do we embrace friction and discomfort also as part of living community as a practice and placing care at the center of our lives and of our society, of our world, if that is what we want? So how do we step up and move from this passive, consumerist, extractive way of, I wish I had this, I wish I had that, and I just don't live in the right place to have this idealistic community or whatever, to actually making it possible in the smallest ways. So very much aligned, I think, with what you're trying to build, but even beyond that, right, in our own lives and the world at large. If we can all do one smaller step and commit to that, and that's what I mean with the year of the horse, is very much about following through. So not just dreaming and shedding layers and hoping and manifesting, but like, let's do it. Let's start in wherever we are in our local communities as well. So that's what's emerging for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Monika. And I think also where we found each other is that, there are so many communities and so many community leaders here also present in our community, which we see all as like all these islands of coherence, and instead of competing that we used to do before, or like being afraid of, oh, they're going to do this or they're going to do that. No, we are about trust and collaboration, and we're going to weave, these things together. And we talked already with Monika. We're going to do a lot of new programs also with some of our podcast guests. And Monika has a beautiful practice, which is called the daily practice, that I have been practicing since I followed one of her courses. And It's a 15-minute daily practice. Perhaps you can explain it quickly, Monika, if you want.
Yeah, sure. So the background here is it comes from social neuroscience research. So it comes literally from the lab, if you will, and it had a momentum during the pandemic, of course, when there was a lot of need for connection in a different way. So they took it and shaped it a bit differently. So it's a 15-minute one-on-one practice online, and you switch partners every week. And it's essentially sharing every day a moment of a difficult emotion and how that felt in your body in the past day or so, something tricky. And then a moment of gratitude, something that you're grateful for. And then you switch. So it's a practice of sharing and listening very deeply, and very much capacity building in a tangible, pragmatic, 15-minute scripted kind of way, but deeply, deeply, valuable, I think, and can shift not only how you relate to others, but to yourself, and have a sense of shared humanity, that we all have difficulties, but we all have something to be grateful for as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Monika. I think it's a great practice because it's so simple. It's 15 minutes, but it's actually, at least to me, it helps me to express, like difficult emotions, because we are sometimes not aware of them, right? They are just running our script, and we're not aware of them always. So thank you for that. So we'll communicate in the right timing to the community. Next, I want to introduce the lovely Virginia Vigliar, who's head of content at Advaya. I think most of you know. She's also a writer and researcher exploring social justice, ecology, feminism, and all through poetic lens. So I think you're dialing in from Barcelona. Is that right, Virginia?
Yes. Hi, everyone. Thank you. Thank you, Rudy and Alex, for having me. First, I wasn't here, so I don't know if I'm supposed to say something, or if I'm supposed to say what's emerging for me, I'm guessing.
Right. So, what is emerging for you this year?
Whoa. So there's a few things. I think the last few days I've been struggling, well, not struggling, but just kind of trying to understand the complexity of being an artist or making art, and what that means in the world of today. So for example, like I have a Substack, and I went there because I was like, okay, Instagram's not working for me, Substack is better or whatever. And now sometimes I feel this pressure that I need to produce. And I just kept thinking, okay, but people didn't produce at this level. Like the level at which we're asked to produce art content is just, I think, unsustainable. So I'm trying to grapple with how that looks like for me, like how a kind of normal pace looks like for me, and how to make it work also in a way where usually it's about remaining relevant, but it seems so silly, the idea of like, well, what does it even mean to remain relevant right now? So that's something I'm definitely working with right now. I'm writing an essay called The Tyranny of Relevance right now. And then actually I'm reading this like tiny little book called it's the Archipelago Conversations with Edouard Glissant and Hans-Ulrich Obrist. And Glissant was a Martinican kind of philosopher and opinionist, let's say. And he writes about how archipelagos can teach us, because an island is never really an island. An island is usually part of an archipelago. And so I'm just looking at how we can create our own islands, but in a way that's conscious within a bigger archipelago. And this tiny little book is amazing. Okay. It's from this publisher called Isolati. It's amazing. Anyways, and it's all this conversation between these two people. And another thing that Glissant wrote that I wrote about was the idea of opacity, which was like, how do we exist without definitions? How do we exist in the in-between? And obviously from his experience, he placed it from like a post-colonialist lens. But it was really interesting because he talks a lot about, how to remain opaque. The fact that we don't need to define ourselves, that we're always part of a mix. So that was really interesting. And then there was a third thing that I wrote, a classic. So
It's
yeah,
okay. It's Sunday afternoon.
it's Sunday afternoon and it's raining and I haven't seen the sun in like 24 hours.
So, yeah, welcome, Canay, Lucimara. Also, perhaps we can have another man in the field. Tom, do you want to share what is emerging for you?
Hi, Rudy. Thanks. Hi, everyone. Thanks, Rudy and Alex, for holding this space. Feels nice on a Sunday. I'm colouring in a mandala to keep my nervous system regulated. Nice to follow you, Virginia, as well, because I really resonate with some of those reflections on pacing. I think maybe you said natural timing, or I've kind of added that in, but yeah, somehow connected to that sense of like expectation of productivity, certainly for creative expression, feels burdensome. What's emerging for me, I feel like I'm at the end of the beginning of the work that I've been birthing, which has been the last kind of 3 years. And that's definitely had a real startup pace. So this winter has been a decisive kind of threshold for me. And I quite consciously kind of worked through last winter, knowing that that was also felt out of integrity with my work, which is about spreading regenerative fluency or literacy, helping people develop their vocabulary for living systems thinking, for biological complexity and those sorts of processes. And so not wintering myself, not resting myself last winter it was sort of intentional, but I could feel the tension, the distance. So I've been trying to do that this year, and I really slowed down kind of over the holidays. And then this last 2 weeks getting back into work, I've had this experience of like gently opening things up and then accelerating really fast and panicking a bit and actually having to like pump the brakes. So what's emerging for me is this, and I'm trying to see these experiences as invitations to live more fully what I'm sharing in the world and what I want to be kind of part of and emanating. And I'm finding that quite challenging, honestly, at this stage of kind of looking out onto a much longer arc of work, taking on some organizational clients that I hope will be kind of multi-year partnerships, building a cooperative entity to share this work around the world and across different languages. That is all quite a lot administratively. And then there's like delivery and content and stuff amongst that as well. And so I've got these 3 cards on my desk of compost. I'm still composting. I was thinking about composting and how it's also about disassembly, taking things apart. And so I'm trying to sort of take apart that working pace that I've had for the last few years, which has been very much like a startup, fast pace, to make it more slow and steady. And that makes room for being fallow, really trying to have that empty time and treating this liminal time between now and the start of the Chinese New Year as before things really begin a new work rhythm. So making moments for fallowing as much as I can. And then all of that allowing for kind of this natural timing, seasons and cycles. What are the natural rhythms that I can work with, and doing some lunar calendar planning for a cadence of meetings and things this year. And just trying not to rush and sit and be steady with what are the kind of optimal ways of scheduling things. I think when one is in contact with lots of different people or multiple audiences, I personally find that really challenging. Yeah, deeper in there with the composting, there's something about kind of saying no as well and having a reset and tending to boundaries and like risking doing things too slowly, whatever that means. I think that's my sort of inquiry at the moment. I definitely haven't figured that out, but I'm in a sort of slightly tense space of speeding up, slowing down, trying to find a bit more of a balance point for the winter, and knowing that it's a much longer journey that I want to chart. And so it's really nice hearing that intro from you guys about, quality more than quantity, and depth and presence coming first more than kind of reach and things like that. And I've never really been so sucked into that idea of those kind of motivations of scaling and impact and reach and visibility myself. But the work is growing and it is scaling out rather than up. So yeah, holding that in a way that's in integrity with, I think, this like sub-theme of regeneration. That's how it is to my mind, that cycles, cyclical change, as there are other kind of deeper themes. Yeah, learning to be with that. So I think that's about creating space for the emergence that I feel is coming next. So it's definitely like some fundamental work and personal work involved in that as well. I want to kind of keep making room to notice how I'm speeding things up, just having this wild reflection of like, wow, I'm feeling a bit of panic, and I've chosen to do all of this stuff. So like, how can I reshape it and do that well? Yeah.
Yeah, best of luck, Tom, with your journey. And by the way, Tom's journey is really an example of, you know, how you can really build from your own seat and your own inner strength. We have seen, together with Canay, by the way, you know, Tom's journey unfolding from bio leadership, I think it was 2-3 years ago, into a seat, and then the first, you know, demo test with the cards for life and all that. And now he's been, you know, last year you were in China, you were in Brazil, you were everywhere with the
Yeah,
cards.
and Kenya, there's been a real intention to seed this work outside of Europe first and develop those influences first. And what's been really beautiful about that is, so this work is about adapting Cards for Life and the facilitator training that goes with this tool, Thinking Like Gaia, into other cultures and languages by supporting local stewards to make those adaptations. So in China, there's a strong Taoist infusion. We have all kinds of different influences in Brazil, which is getting really interesting, and so on. And yeah, to try to kind of consciously decenter what could easily default to a sort of Eurocentric narrative and set of ideas, and explore what's universal and what's hyperlocal about regenerative practice, starting with this tool for fluency, a similar kind of conceptual language, which is very much an open system. So it works alongside many other forms of practice. Yeah, learning about how to do that. But thank you, Rudy. It's been an extraordinary journey, and it feels really good as well to actually be at this threshold. I appreciate your comment, because it reminds me to take stock and sort of celebrate the achievement so far. And actually, that's something that I realize I miss in this process of kind of making room and slowing down, to actually count some achievements and enjoy that. Enjoy the work. It's like I'm gonna write that on my board to remember. So yeah, thank you for your comment. I actually really appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. And talking about celebration, no other person is better to introduce now than to switch to Canay, you know, who is all about celebration in her life. Canay, what is emerging for you?
Okay, let's celebrate. Happy birthday again. Fantastic. Another year with beauty, with health, with abundance. I really wish you the best. Hello, everyone. Happy Sunday. I'm Canay. I'm in Ibiza right now. I just connected. Sorry for that problem. Jam of conversations. I will listen to them. So I'm just going to share some practical things that are emerging for me and that can be of value to you. I am 44 years old, and the last couple of months, something really shifted for me. You know, in a mandala, if the core is organized well, and then the system starts creating coherent shapes around it. So this is exactly how I'm embodying last year and the beginning of this year. We always talked about it, you know, 1 year ago, or was it 2 years ago, Rudy? We did together with Rudy something called Intentions. In the beginning of the year, we invited the people that we admire. Carol Sanford was one of them, and she did a live workshop with me. And she invited me to talk about what I am actually struggling with. And I told her it's very hard for me to be a single mother and do my work, trying to ground in Ibiza while I'm Turkish, you know, all these global visions. And she asked me, but what are you dealing day to day in your life? And I shared something very intimate about me and my daughters, how I feel as a mother. I want to grow myself and my daughters. And she said, focus on that and see how it's relevant to the region, to Ibiza, to the bridges between Ibiza and Istanbul, because I feel so passionate about Turkey as well, and then to the planetary mission. And focus on you and how it can weave into a bigger mandala. I'm rephrasing. And I can proudly say that actually 2 years after, I'm living by that. What I noticed is, as I was looking at how to innovate systems with regenerative principles, I was actually missing something very important.
as a woman, as a leader, as a mother, and that is self-validation. You know, on Google, it says, validate your humanity, and then you select these mechanic photos to prove that you're human. I do it to myself, self-validation. Not mechanic, but it's like an emotional, it's a presence experience. When I feel I'm rushing, when I feel I'm doing something for the sake of doing it, there is always this notion of lag, and it comes from because I'm not validating myself. And each time I'm validating myself, I'm full, I'm whole, I'm complete. Then that feeling of rush disappears. And guess what? Not necessarily I always slow down. I sometimes speed up. But it's coming from wholeness because it becomes clear. So on a daily basis, I breathe in and ask how I'm feeling. If I'm feeling good, great. If I'm not feeling good, I validate myself. And there are so many techniques around it, and probably you know. And I see it also with my clients, with my friends. A lot of us are adopting ourselves, but nature, creation does no mistakes. So we are here with our innate capacities to be fully us, and there is nothing that is here to say you don't belong. So I want to open with that because it took me to another layer. I used to have very strong opinions about what is good and what is bad, including some events that I believe are hurting all of us. And I don't know in this community or in the audience, maybe some of you are directly affected with the ongoing wars and crises and health challenges, and I wish you the best. And at the same time, whether we are in it or watching it, we are all parts of it. And I understood as I validate myself, I validate what is. Creation makes no mistakes. So there is no bad. Even in the most hurtful situations, it's happening for us to recognize how can I be a better human, better leader participating in this. And that starts in the way that we are thinking about it. Very much like Tom's cards, there's always billions ways to look at one incident. And me and all of us, before we judge something, someone, something going on in the world or Trump in US, let's take a moment. It's no mistake. So participate, not from lack, not from fear, but from a perception of this is whole, and I'm participating in this process of learning and growth. I think just these two things have changed my life already, and I'm still learning. Thanks God, I love learning. But the third thing I want to share, it's not easy. Self-validation, validating everything that is going on. So it requires muscles of the mind, but at the same time, I started training my body in the gym. It has been 20 months. I'm 44, as I said, and I notice, especially for women, but for all of us, all ages, but especially after 40, it's so essential if you are talking about regeneration, if you are talking about emergence, if you are talking about being responsible. Taking good care of our bodies is level 0 responsibility. We are giving this quantum technology and not looking at what I can do with this and how I can take care of this gift, I believe is super ignorance. And I was not ignorant totally, but I'm noticing how ignorant I was by training myself. One thing that I'm so passionate about, I believe, especially are trained to ignore body strength because it builds not just power in the body, but power in the mind and clarity. Self-validation becomes so much more easier when you train your body. But one thing I have gained, especially in this process, each time I go to gym and I'm lifting weights, I 100% fail because I continue until I cannot do one more set. So this is my limit. So I fail and train myself to fail so that I feel so successful after the gym. And what if I approach to everything that is happening in my life like this? What if I show up with everything that I am and know when to let go before I injure myself? And then the next day I show up again. I believe these are the times that requires immense power immense resilience, immense courage from all of us. And it would be least to say naive to expect the best from yourself unless you have a way of training your body on a daily basis. So this is number 3. The other thing I'm doing, thanks to AI, now we are prompting, really like prompting, vibe coding, doing amazing things. And some of us are meditating, some of us are praying. These are amazing things. But I think asking without jumping to the answers is very important for allowing emerging voices, because the answer can come from anywhere when you are prompting right and when you are in the mode of receiving, whether you are praying to God, whether you are asking AI, whether you are listening to a friend. So being in that position of curiosity, asking better questions, more empowering questions is something I'm experimenting. And I don't struggle anymore because I'm not knowing. The joy of learning is amazing. And like Rudy said, last but not the least, I think celebration is super important. Even when we are suffering and when we are feeling pain, and there is an innate intelligence that allows us to feel that pain. When we are praying for better days, for ourselves, for our communities, for the world, thanks God, because we know there is a better way. So that knowingness maybe is not visible, but the revealing of it, be participating in the solutions, in the processes for it is an amazing gift. I call it love making with life. So what if we don't wait for a partner? We don't wait for the sunset, but what if every moment is an opportunity for us to make love? So that's it. These are what is emerging for me.
Thank you, Canay. That was so beautiful. And yes, we need to take good care of our bodies, because at my age, I just got 65. If I don't do my, qigong or yoga or walks or whatever exercise in the gym, I don't feel good. So for me, it's essential, even growing older, to really practice every day something physical to stay healthy, also in the mind. And now let's move over to, from Ibiza, or Canay's Turkish, by the way, to Brazil and Lucimara. Lucimara, how
Hi,
is
everyone.
emerging for you?
Can you hear me well? It's nice to have a voice from the south, isn't it? In the middle of the nature. It's summer here. I'm not sure if any other here is on the summer. So this notion, Johan is in the summer. So this notion of season, this notion that nature flows in different ways, in different places. I was hearing Alex saying about being hyper local. And last year I was living in London in 2024, actually. And when I came back to Brazil, the notion of regeneration has shifted in so many ways because of the notion of being back to Brazil, where I come from, where I am in my land with my people. It's different. It really feels different. So it's good to be here. I'm glad. I was very honored to be part of the podcast series. And if you have a chance to listen to it, I talk about how museums and social memory are so important for us to reshape the narratives we want for the future, and the fact that we are museums within ourselves. So when you mentioned Carol Sanford, Canay, and she was the basis of my research in the UK about regenerative museums. And it's all about the narratives. It's really about our social memories are so important because they're collective. They're interconnected with collective memories. And that's why it's so responsibility that we shape the future collective memory now. This is really what I'm into, and how we help society to oversee a new social memory that we're all co-responsible for. So what I'm emerging for me personally when Rudy made that question, this year was really running very fast, because one thing that it's important for you to understand, it's having the colonial perspective. Because when I was in the UK, there's so many resources available, lots of trusts and foundations, and the possibility is huge. It's not the same thing in Brazil for regeneration, although
lots of people are doing regenerative work, as Tom was saying, and lots of people are doing regenerative thinking practices, networks. The funding is not the same, and the funding resources are not available the same way. And also the level of understanding of what does it mean to expand awareness and consciousness and being supported by foundations to do so. It's different. So it's a struggle. So going back to Brazil, it brought me back also to understand the level of commitment with the people who are also struggling communities to find funds to do this work. And I think I came really fast and saying, I need to do everything I learned, everything I know, and put into practice. So I am in multiple networks, both in Brazil and internationally, giving classes, creating graduate courses, going to the universities, talking about regeneration with schools, with university teaching, and also doing articles, and then going to COP. This is what I want to talk about. So I was in Belém for 2 weeks doing COP. And we tried to bring regenerative thinking to COP. A network of people saying, listen, it's not about sustainability anymore. It's about soul. It's not just about regenerating the land or the landscape. We need to think about the social fabric that will lead us to regenerate the landscape. It's quite hard. It's really hard. It's tough being there. Lots of negotiation about CO2 and decarbonization. And we were saying, look, it's about a culture shift. It's about mindset. But there are few of us, or maybe many of us, that were willing to bring that message. So I think for me this year, it's about landing this knowledge, that it's global knowledge, but really coming to practices that are more immersive, more close to communities of practices. And I'm very also working on developing digital products that can reach more people, because I'm very used to work with face-to-face museums professionals and cultural leaders. But I want to expand that to digital and explore the idea that digital can also be connected with presence, as we're doing here. It's not easy, but it's something that I am exploring now. And just going back to inspiration, some of you showed source of inspiration. I'm reading the book from Satish Kumar, who many of you may know from Schumacher College, The Radical Love. And just to remind ourselves, this triad of soil, soul, and society, they are never separate. They all together if you want to create revolution, change, transformation. And this brought me to the notion that I need to go back to soil. So I'm looking for a space here in Brazil to be, here's an island of friends who are willing to do more work on regeneration, on sustainability practices. So we are here to have a discussion about how this can be done. But I'm finding a space with my husband in a community of regenerative and transition towns close by Rio de Janeiro that we'll be working together in a farm. So I understood that in the triad of soil, society, and soil, I was working much more on society and soul, perhaps, but not on the soil. I was very much on the university and consultancy and training, and now it's time to land in the soil. So perhaps I can support and be part of this community, bringing the colonial thinking, social fabric, the cultural memory, and nature. Because I think one of the things that I have understood is inspirational talk is important, but also practice and understand what's happening in the South, bringing more indigenous voices with us, being them very close, and understanding what does it mean to work with indigenous communities, which is not subjective ideas. They are very intellectual, they are very active, and they are keen to work with practice with us. So yeah, those are my thoughts for now, Rudy and Alex, because in all of you, really being close to radical love is being close to soil. It's understanding how the conversation that we had at COP cannot be just intellectual. It needs to be regenerative. We were very suffocated by the fact that we were in a space that was no nature.
because these COP meetings, they are not they're not surrounded by nature and those kind of things that we're always trying to say why we're doing this, if not to recognize that we are nature. So I think we can bring more these conversations into bigger forums to influence big change and create scale and perhaps inspire other people to talk more about their soul as well, rather than just the policies. So yeah, very inspired to be here and bringing the nature a little bit for us, and really inviting you all if you want to learn more about this research on regenerativemuseums.com. There are lots of interviews there to inspire our conversations, and so you can know where I'm coming from.
Thank you, Lucimara. And it looks indeed super abundant behind you, and I welcome everyone to check Lucimara's podcast also, because her idea of bringing living systems back into the old dead museums, in the West or around the world, I think is a brilliant idea. So we'll definitely do more together this year, Lucimara. Thank you for your contribution. So next is...
Yeah, also, Canay
yes,
is asking, Canay is saying that COP31 will be in Turkey. And she's also asking if, Lucimara, will you be in Turkey? Canay, you're in Turkey right now? Or you're in Ibiza?
I'm in Ibiza, but I'm planning to join to Turkey COP. Will you be there?
I have worked with COPs throughout a network of cultural heritage, that are influencing how climate policies can be through the cultural heritage landscape. So the idea is that I will go, so I can let you know when it comes.
Yes. Let's connect. Thank you.
Yeah, Antalya is amazing, by the way. So very fond memories there. So next we have our dear friend Timothée Brass, who's actually, we have done some work together this year on AI shadow work, or how can we work, or do shadow work and using AI actually. And so that was a beautiful project that we did with a group of men, where actually half of the men were already, let's say, addicted to AI, and the other half had never worked with AI. But the great thing was that actually we actually did all the integration in the circle, in the group, in the collective intelligence of the group. And so the biases of both AI and our own biases came up, So Timothée just, I think, finished 2 weeks walk to Santiago de Compostela also. So he comes out of a space of reflection. So what is emerging for you, Timothée?
Thank you, Rudy. I'm actually coming back from the mountains at the moment. Compostela was like more before Christmas, but I highly recommend the very simple experience of walking multiple days in nature without screen, just like with an old phone. And that was the most regenerative trip I did in a very long time. So yeah, thank you for inviting me, Rudy and Alex, to share some perspective for the coming year. Really appreciated. Congrats again for this, beautiful platform that you created, that for me filled up a gap that was really missing, and in the scene, if we could talk about that. So yeah, I'm in Stockholm at the moment, and I just wanted to start with a reflection that I'm not sure I even applied to myself fully yet, at least, is how we often think about the new year and the coming year, and how my experience the past years has been that just closing properly the past year is often enough to set the right foundations for the coming year. So if anyone is stressing a bit like me about the coming year and wondering what kind of approach to take, just like thinking about, did I actually close properly everything from last year? Yeah. Then in terms of like intention for 2026, many people say that masculinity is something that is plural and that there's many masculinities. I personally believe that the masculinity of the future I want to see is grounded in 3 elements. Well, first, grounding. The second is the protection of truth. And the third is the devotion to the feminine. And yeah, I just want to remind these principles for myself and maybe some for men and potentially women in the space today. So, yeah, I wanted to share a few points about what I believe is important for the coming year. My driving question for 2026 is really about how to ground digital communities within local islands of coherence. So we see how collapse is accelerating, especially in Europe, and how the cities become less and less, inhabitable, basically. And the creating this bridge between actually global digital communities and potentially already existing eco-villages is, for me, key, but requires, for me, a narrative that can actually bring those two tribes together. You could say maybe the kind of low-tech permaculturist and the more like, I don't know, tech bros or techno hippies. And finding one narrative that can actually bring everyone together, for me, is a challenge. And I believe regeneration is powerful, but is still triggering for people who could actually fund the movement. And so looking for attractors and powerful narratives is something I want to spend my energy onto. I want to name two that I find are powerful enough and also encompassing without being too polarizing. Is the one of localism. How localism is something that directly connects to the management of resources and brings, I think, many people together. And also, humanism as a more like global meta attractor. But basically, the key is how can we make these islands of coherence functional? How can they have functional cultures? Because in many spaces, it's quite dysfunctional, actually. And people struggle to attract capital funding, as Lucimara was talking, or just starting to grow like in a healthy way. And this question of how to develop generative cultures within islands of coherence is, for me, something we can approach through three angles. The first one is really addressing one of the biggest shadow, which is of decentralized spaces and these type of communities, is shadow hierarchies. So how can we honor natural hierarchies and reestablish competence and experience hierarchy to avoid the toxic shadow hierarchies? That's the first step. The second one is polarity work. How can we reestablish right polarities, masculine and feminine, at both leadership level, but also at collective level, moving from centralization and decentralization, holding the two polarities as a collective? And the last one is, for me, what I call generative polarization, which is developing the capacity to hold, the left-right tensions, basically, and having this being held in a generative way. So, maybe some of you heard about the network states and some people in the Web3, like, awakening from this notion that you cannot build generative cultures through technology only. It has to come through the ground. Like, for me, the whole cultural maturity issue of the Web3 space will be solved through offline communities. You cannot bypass the body and the land and sexual differences. Like, that is, key for me in the coming year. So, Rudy, you were sharing with me last week about how technology has been eating culture, and how whatever new movement that will bring us in a better direction, art needs to be central, and how it has to come through offline movements. And this is why we're working at the moment on an offline gathering in Château du Fay in March in France, as a kind of a test ground to develop this kind of vortex through polarity work, sound, movement, and psychotechnology. How can we increase the level of coherence of these communities? And Discopunk is an artistic and also meta-narrative project that has the main intention is really reconnection to our primal nature. So it's really about reconnecting to the truth of our own body and how we can develop these kind of instincts, capacities that can help us to navigate the complexity in which we're in at the moment. Maybe another dimension about this project is really about conscious underground. So I'm coming from the underground electronic music scene, and I was a bit, not so convinced by the level of consciousness there. The art was quality, but people were mainly using art and as an ego tool and partying as an escapism strategy. And so I went into the more conscious scene and went into the whole like, well, the 5 rhythm, ecstatic dance, and it was amazing. But with the music, it was really difficult. So this project is really about bringing the best of the conscious and the underground together. And yeah, we'll have Psychic Warriors of Gaia, this legend from the 90s, and some other very interesting people to really explore this analog electronic music for primal dance floors. So another thing we're going to do during that exploration is to use AI in parallel and to use it as a test ground to explore how we can use the body to think what AI cannot. So that's what I call a logosomatic approach. A lot of my work is about bridging like high cognitive complexity and really somatic practices and embodied wisdom, and really re-explore how can the mind be at service of the leadership of the body? How can the body can lead cognition? And how can we recognize this notion of pre-verbal cognition? And also the fact that AI doesn't have a nervous system and that it can deliver massive amount of insights, but it cannot attune to where we are at. And yeah, I believe this whole exploration is key. And yeah, I've really shared about the work we did this year around AI shadow work. For me, like 2 metrics I would like that I love to use and that I think are very powerful is action and community. Is my relationship with AI actually increasing my concrete impact in the world? And does it help me to have more connection with other human beings? If that's not the case, then there's an issue and you probably need to fine-tune something in your relationship to it. Yeah, then I was sharing with you also, Rudy, I watched the Tristan Harris interview on the Diary of a CEO recently. Maybe some of you checked it out. It's really powerful. He works closely with Daniel Schmachtenberger, and he has a beautiful way of like bringing like deep thought, deep thinking in simple terms. And for me, the need of creating spaces for collective integration of AI-driven insights, because we know that AI therapy and AI inner work is the #1 use of AI in the world today. How can we create online spaces where we can actually integrate collectively these insights? Basically, what we did with Rudy is, yeah, I think is very important. I want to focus on this also this year. Yeah, then Tom was talking about this tension between scale and integrity. For me, generative leadership is really about developing this sensitivity both within ourselves and outside, and through polarity work. Like for me, like polarity work is really a key, between leadership and followership, directive and collaborative. Developing this capacity within myself is key to ground my leadership in service of life. Yeah, maybe if some of you are in Stockholm at the moment, tonight we're actually holding a saloon on sex and gender and how to hold the tension between non-binary spirits and binary bodies, which I believe is also essential. So I'll do this, with Pamela. We're in Lakefront at the moment, so if you're around, join us. And I will drop maybe some links in the chat if you're interested to know more about my work. Thank you so much again, Rudy and Alex, and have a beautiful afternoon, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, Timothée. Yeah, some people are already asking the link for the Disco Punk event in France. I'm really intrigued by these primal dance floors, like I wonder how that's going to look, So yeah, we might join there with some people from the community to in Paris. That would be great. When's the date again, Timothée?
So it's so we'll have like a residency of a week, and then we'll open the weekend from the 21st, 22nd of March. But it will be 1 weekend. It's very limited in terms of space. So if you really feel the call, contact me or Rudy. But I think this will be pretty special. This first edition is quite small. And if the vibe is there, we might do something like, bigger.
Great having you here with us, Timothée, and looking forward to do some more programs together, around AI and shadow work or whatever that can be. I think it's essential how we learn to work with AI, actually, also. and
Yeah,
keep our resilience. Alex, you wanted to say something?
yeah. Before we move on, we're at the top of the hour, and I just wanted to pause for a moment. We've covered so much ground, and I'm noticing a few threads that are converging. You know, some topics that are coming up through the speakers, and I don't want to just rush past it because it's been a lot of ground. What I see here is there's something about going from ideas into practice. So not just staying in the ideas, but going into practice. I've heard about grounding, all this work in bodies, in land, having a following some kind of pace, observing limits, something about culture that works when things get hard. So how do we find that culture, those narratives, those regenerative narratives? How do we pay attention to the narratives that we are living, and are they serving us? And also I've heard about how to work with AI, like healthy ways to work with AI. Now, I'm not going to say relationship with AI because AI is not conscious, but as we get drawn into AI that keeps on improving, how do we then, notice what's happening and establish a healthy relationship with it? So you don't need to hold all of that, but I'd invite you to notice which of those threads is most alive for you now. And maybe we can take one deep breath before we continue. And I believe Thomas shared his LinkedIn. So please feel free also to share your socials or LinkedIn so you can keep connected. Of course, there's our WhatsApp community where you can connect, but also I invite you all to connect with each other. And yeah, let's go on.
Yeah, and I think I just saw Brockhausen arrived, and Silke is actually, she's the founder of the Regeneration Collective, and she's joining us from Jerusalem. She's actually on a United Nations mission for Gaza, if I may say so. So Silke, welcome. What is emerging for you being over there in that high conflict zone?
Thank you, Rudy, for having me, and Alex and everybody to see you. And also just listening to Timothée, it's so inspiring and nourishing for me here. I feel a bit disconnected from a lot of these conversations. I'm grateful for every opportunity. And yeah, I've been here in Jerusalem now for 2 months and will stay for a while. And it's currently raining a lot here. It's very dark and cold, and about 2 hours away from here, 70 kilometers, the Gaza Strip is starting, and we have thousands of people living in tents there that are not rainproof and that gets flooded, and there are about 7 people in average living in one tent, and there are no opportunities to dry your clothes or to warm the tent or to cook yourself in these tent cities. We have a lot of national staff that is working for us a lot, day and night, and they live in these tent cities. And there's so much need on the ground that it's more than heartbreaking. And I think what is difficult to hold is that there is help available. We have everything that is needed and required, and the logistics are in place, but the political will is missing to help these people. And there are a lot of political developments at the moment, and they are all going in a different direction than perhaps everybody who is in the regenerative field wants it to go. And yeah, that is all a lot to hold. We had fire drills last week because everybody was concerned about attacks from Iran as retaliation for US involvement there, which gratefully didn't, or thankfully didn't happen. But yeah, so this is all at the moment taking place. And for me, I think what has been part of my own reflections is that maybe now it's the moment where just all of this darkness that we see in this world is just coming very much alight, and that we needed to be confronted with the fact that our
planet is driven by greed and by fears and insecurities and by the belief that we are separate from each other and that we have to protect each other from those outside. And maybe this will lead to an awareness that it doesn't have to be like this. And I reflect a lot also about my role in this larger scheme of things. And I came with this idea of maybe changing everything with my regenerative ideas and bringing permaculture to the Gaza Strip and warm data labs and everything that I personally have learned about regeneration and indigenous wisdom. And I'm realizing that it's still a long journey for this. And what my role is at the moment is to really stay grounded myself and finding own regenerative ways of dealing with the energies around me, with the developments, with the situation, the context, the people I deal with every day, and to keep up the hope and maybe bring as much compassion as possible for all sides that are impacted in this place, and listen to people, be an example in collaboration, in taking care of myself, and learning more about self-love, self-compassion, and doing it. So it's not been easy. And what I always have in the back of my mind, also before I came to this call, was Martin Luther King saying that those who want love have to be those who want love have to be as well organized as those who want war or peace. I think it was peace. Sorry, I'm losing my track here. But I think that's one of the things I'm focusing on, to try to organize all the people around me that have the same mindset and culture around that. And also, what I also love is one of the sayings that Dr. Lila June, an Indigenous wisdom holder, is teaching, that we are born from beauty into beauty for a life of joy. And I think that's something that really is needed here. And those maybe, just as a background, Rudy has alluded to it, and I already had a podcast with Alex and Rudy. And my background is that I've been with the UN for 20 years, and that I went on a long regenerative journey, and realizing that a lot of the regenerative concepts would be really valuable inside the UN to hopefully trigger internal organizational change and culture shifts. And to this end, I started this collective of, now I think we're about 450 people in a WhatsApp group. We have a website, and we're exchanging on it on, different topics around indigenous knowledge, around regenerative economy, around decolonization, and many other beautiful threads that are happening. And Rudy is a very active member. Thank you for this, and a steward of the collective. And I started also a podcast this year on this topic, just to get more ideas and inspiration on how we can bring all these concepts into an organizational setting. I learned a lot from it, and I'm currently pausing it because of my new position. And I hope I can resume it soon as well. But the idea is really that the UN is founded on beautiful principles, and it has a beautiful origin and roots on wanting to really save or eliminate the world from suffering and the effects of war. And that it is active in 193 countries, and is a platform that can really trigger a lot of ripple effects. And in order to get to this place, we do need to raise the conscience of staff and the leaders inside the UN and not even to start talking about the UN member states who take the biggest decisions around war and peace in this organization, but also looking at the staff. And what we need is more inner development, and this opportunity of providing the framework and the space for staff to trigger this change. And to this end, one of the objectives of the Regeneration Collective is to create a vision statement for the new Secretary General that is currently being chosen and should start work on the 1st of January 2026. And through the podcast and an online poll and conversations and co-creative process that took place in the last couple of months, we now have a document that creates or that describes this vision of what the UN could be if it was fully decolonized, fully regenerative, fully life-affirming. And my dream and my vision now is to really share this with all the candidates that are running for this office, and then hopefully trigger some inspiration and perhaps support any processes that come out of it. So to this end, I'm welcoming any ideas how to carry this work forward. And also personally, I appreciate any ideas how to continue staying sane in a very crazy environment. And I'm so grateful to have this kind of groups like Voices of Emergence and the collective, and just knowing that there are still very sane and healthy people in the world that are pushing for this change makes me really, really hopeful. And I think if we are all organized better through these kind of networks, there is so much potential for turning the tides over the next years and really moving our planets to a whole different way of being together. So thank you for this opportunity to just have a monologue and all the best. So
Thank you, Silke, and thank you for joining and breaking up your amazing work there. So you know that we exist also with Voices of Emergence. You can always ping us, or the community if you need support or help, on your regeneration project or whatever. I think there's a lot of ideas and cross-pollination that are possible, from the different networks and all these different communities that we are part of and interweaving. I just saw that Lisanna also joined. I don't know if she wants to talk, but before Lisanna, I wanted to give the word to Matti, who's joining also from Ibiza, I guess, or are you in Sweden?
Hey, yeah, I'm joining from Ibiza. I'm back in Ibiza, and I have less of a monologue, I think, maybe because I find myself in a in breath out breath moment. I had a bit of time to sit still, a couple of weeks in Mexico, together with whales and sand and tropical fruit, and how good it was to observe the impatience that I have allowed into my system in everything. It took a good week before I could enjoy really to just sit, which is mind-blowing in itself, I think. And then towards the end, really feeling and observing myself and life as it is from a very, very different place. Having had quite a hectic year with this sense of wanting to be part and have impact and speak wise and do the right things, maybe now realizing that the only right thing is to slow down even more and find ways to do that, meet my children where they are. I have a teenager now who, when he grew up, was very needing movement and nature and a hunting spirit. So that was very easy to be me in. And now I have a daughter in those years. She's 7, and she's not as interested in that. She wants art and sparkles. So to not try to force her into these adventures that I think children and myself feels the best in, but to find where to meet her and where to be with attention towards her, and where to meet myself, and yeah, also the regenerative movement. What does it look like when it goes a bit deeper? How do I manage myself and the people within it, and as well as my community that I find myself in quite a moving one. It's very fluctuating here, who is committed to stay and who wants to go somewhere warmer and don't really know if they think this is the right place or if this is the right, that type of community have very little roots. And here I am trying to regenerate the soil for communal roots, and it's I need to rethink or rebreathe that. And then as I sit here and romanticize of all this change and all this beauty that we potentially, obviously should live with, I realize it's a type of procrastination to spread myself into so many directions. I create amazing futures in many ways. So I'm just pulling everything back, and maybe I jumped a little bit more into the waves. I take time to make a fire and put some attention to it. That's more where I am in this moment.
So lovely to hear a man slowing down like you, Matti. It's a blessing. For your info, Matti has been doing man circles for a long time. We have been sitting many times in circles together in Ibiza. And we also plan to do some man circles online with our community and together with Matti. So before we go there, I think, Lisanna, you want to say something? What is emerging for you?
Well, I texted Rudy yesterday. I don't know if I'm in a space to share or prepare, because I've been like Matti. I've been really slowly starting the year up and looking outside, and I live in nearby Amsterdam in Holland, and it was very snowy last week. And how am I expected to start the year whilst nature is still so asleep? So I've been feeling asleep, also slightly resisting it, as you shared as well. And yeah, contemplating when I want to start this year. And whilst taking it very slowly, I realized that this is a really productive rest of inspiration and relationships. And so I spent today the whole day with family, and I feel just still in a slow pace. And I'm in the field of AI. I'm an AI ethicist. So I speak about artificial intelligence, and I moderate discussions about the topic. And my first gig is on the 29th of January, where I have to moderate a discussion for Microsoft on digital sovereignty. And I'm sitting with that as an ethicist, also in this space of nothingness, and really feeling, okay, so how is this speaking in the world of AI? And that is so fast paced, and I'm always behind. How is this even possible to be an ethicist in that field? And I'm noticing in this space in between that I'm drifting towards leadership as a broader theme, which is in AI, obviously also really important that we show up as leaders imperfectly, but even so. So I have a lot of half-finished thoughts and no conclusions, lots of things emerging. And I just wanted to be with you today without really giving any of my finished thoughts, just listening and being together, just like an extended family, like the family gathering I had today with my real family and now with this extended family. So
Lisanne, thank you, Lisanne. I think that's perfect. Silke talked about what's happening in the world and our need to be present with what's happening. And then Matti said, well, I'm slowing down and I'm grounding and I'm taking care of myself. And you're here with like, yeah, I don't have any finished thoughts or solutions, but really I'm just sitting with what is. And I think it's a perfect arc because we're all feeling this way. So thank you.
Yeah. And I'm in this phase also reflecting on that, like from where I am, I'm looking at the field of AI differently too. And I'm really feeling that for AI, the coming year will be that we start to appreciate this kind of, it's really online. The non-AI, the authentic stuff will appreciate even more. Last year, we were still in the hype, and I'm feeling that this year will be much more around gathering again, around meaning, around messiness, around doing things with your hands and meeting offline in the physical, in the flesh. I'm excited to give that more space. And I'm excited to meet Rudy after years of being in online circles together next month. So yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, looking forward to that. We have been in touch for years and we have never met. With many people here present, I have met physically, but a lot of them not even. And but it's amazing also how you can build relationships, like just by connecting to values and vision and focusing on the relationship itself. So we have had all our speakers. Some of them have been ill, and the other ones who cannot connect are basically on the road to Davos, and they are stuck. So what we suggest is perhaps opening the floor for any of the participants if they want to share something, how they have how this has been landing, all these inputs, because there has been so many inputs. We have been we are recording, so we will also publish this, and perhaps in specific reels or short reels. But I think there's so many inputs and beautiful thoughts that have been shared here. So, and I think they will go through with us, or they come with us for the rest of the year. So what I would like to plant here also, the seed, is like, however heavy life can seem around us, or however heavy the news and the chaos can seem around us, we all have joy and play inside of us. And let's not forget to connect to that, like as a father and as a grandfather, the most joy I have in my life is basically to play with my children, my grandchildren. And I think that's the essence of life, like to keep that light and that flame alive, and to be able to, just enjoy life and operate from our life force. Yeah. So, Alex, you want to say something, or what do you
Wow.
need to finish here? Because we also had Tao to close with a musical piece, but he just landed and he cannot make it home in time. So that's going to be for another meeting. And so, yeah, what do you suggest, Alex?
Oh, well, first of all, I feel deeply grateful and connected, and it's so wonderful to see all the podcast guests again. It's taking me back to each of those episodes. I just truly love the conversations so much, and the depth and the insights, and also wonderful to be here with the community at large and to see everyone. Yeah, I think when we say sit with the joy and celebrate, it's not a spiritual bypassing. I think we can do both. We can acknowledge the seriousness of our times and recognize that we are alive, and an important part of being alive is gratitude, celebration, connection, community, culture, art, music. These are important parts of being alive. It's part of the erotic engagement with life. And this is the regenerative part. So as we sit with all the changes that are happening, we also show up in a regenerative way. And that's what I'm sitting with. That's what I'm learning here today. And I'm also curious for all of you, what's alive for you? What is your takeaway? and what is most alive for you. And feel free to, unmute yourself and pop in.
I'd like to share. Hi, everyone. My name is Danielle. Hi, Rudy. Happy birthday.
Hi, Danielle. See.
So,
Video?
I will try. It's, I am on pilgrimage in Turkey. I just arrived to Aphrodisia. And what is 100% alive in me? Yesterday I was in Pamukkale, and our guide took us to a cave with these sulfur springs and underwater dwellings that I never had ever heard of or experienced. And my priestess, who I am with, we did an impromptu ceremony around rebirth in those waters and healing. And so what is alive in me is this energy of rebirth and sacred initiation. And just being able to tune in today really helped to reinforce the action that now needs to come from that intention. So that's what I wanted to share. Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle. Anyone else?
I think you can try, Rudy.
Yeah, sure.
Very inspiring, Danielle, what you just said. I was thinking how tiring it has been, because when we talk about what is emerging and we here look into regenerative forces and how we see life being reinforced on everything we do, we are also seeing lots of destructive forces. And we are hearing shield saying about the war. So I think today was very inspiring to reconnect to the source of life and to understand that it's going to be tiring many times. It's going to be tough because there is a force that is emerging as well, that is against life. And we need to know this. I think it's a kind of a maturity as well for us to understand that this force is there. But if we are together, there's a lot of energy that flows and comes out of this collective force here that I appreciate and I express my gratitude now, because it can be very hard to do this walk by ourselves when there's a strong force that is kind of going against it in another direction. So it's just an invitation for us to continue flourishing the idea that authenticity and singularity and diversity, it's important. The singular characteristic that each of us bring to the collective is important. But the collective is where this will flourish to create change, because it's together that we make this change. So really inspired, really connected. I was feeling very tired by last year, as I mentioned, COP, because it's kind of saying, oh my God, it's there. Why don't we just change our behaviors? It's not like that. It's slowly, it's taking some time. It's really landing. So thank you for the inspiration, for being authentic together. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucimara. And Galit, raise your hand. Did I pronounce that correct, Galit?
Perfectly. Aren't you surprised? Well done. The age is silent. It's a gift from my French parents that you get a letter that has no sound at the end of your name. Thank you, everyone. This is a new collective for me. I've joined once, invited by a person on your community for the author that wrote that beautiful book. I can't remember the name. And I joined again here, and I was kind of amazed at the caliber and the beauty and the generosity of all the speakers and the facilitator and the kind of unique space that you've created. And one theme that I've picked up and that I'm reflecting, and that's been over a decade long for me, as let's call it a former executive in business and technology, now, hopefully healed from that madness and starting to work towards something a little bit more nourishing, is the need for all those beautiful work that you're doing to be sustained. And it's sustained through your health, your mental health, your physical health, your ability to feel like you're not alone. And this collective that you've built seems to be one of those spaces, digitally indeed, where people can connect in that way. And I can't remember, I think it was you, Lisanne, who said that there's going to be a even more demand and need for gathering and being in this physical, non-AI, non-fake generative, but real generative spaces. And that's where I'm at. So imagining moments in time where the healers get healed, where the givers receive, where the people that are asking the impossible questions get to ask it in a collective without having an answer, but actually emerging together what is there. So I'm just imagining those spaces as emergent as well. Those moments doesn't have to be for profit. It doesn't have to be for any other purpose than being together. And that's what I'm imagining all the way from the darkness of health and kitchenment with all the light and gratitude that you've brought today. So thank you all. And if you're interested in discussing this further, I'm happy to stay in connection. Help us build something that is also in the physical space for all of us to support each other and connect.
Thank you, Galit. And one of the things that we're gonna do this year, or we will enable, is to start physical meetings also. In the different spaces, because we have people from everywhere. And we also sense that everybody wants to come together, and online is great, but coming together locally is even greater, and being able to hug and dance together, look in each other's eyes and all that is beautiful. So we will definitely also do something in that direction. Are there any other contributions or people who would like to say something about this event? And welcome, Galit, to the community. I think we just accepted you also in the WhatsApp community.
Yeah, and let me know if I can help hosting something in the Nordics. I would love to help with that.
And Alex is half Finnish also.
I can do a few fellows.
My father was Brazilian, so I have a Brazilian family name, but my mother is from Finland, and so I am Finnish myself.
Okay, so you speak the impossible language.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, amazing.
But Gali, thank you for naming that. We also believe community becomes important, whether it's online or in the real world. It's this idea of finding the others, the like-minded others, and let's travel together. It's so much better for mental health, nervous system regulation to do it with others. You don't have to do it alone.
Yeah, and I think as we presented earlier, for us, it's also about how can we move from ideas into action, right? And enable or create structure where people can meet and actually start doing things. Because the ripple effects of the community is not always visible. We have many stories of people who connected on the sidelines and that are starting new projects, or, so there is many different directions that this is working also. So, and I really believe that transformation itself cannot happen any longer. It needs to happen on the individual level, but it's also a communal act. And I think that is going to become more and more important also.
Yes,
Anyone
and
else?
I want to say, transformation is one thing, and I myself am very familiar with it. But there's an energy in transformation. And what I have also felt important is capacity building, which is different than transformation. Because transformation has some kind of goal, some kind of performance, some kind of learning. Like there's always more to learn and to do. But capacity building is about, what is needed? How do I, how can I show up in the moment without that goal or objective or whatever? It's just in the present moment. How do I show up? How do I, both with the sadness and the joy? And as a sensitive person, and when things become more intense, how do I build the capacity to show up? So I think that's what I've been learning lately, especially through the podcast conversations in the community and the work with Rudy and others. And I'm curious how that lands for everyone here. If you have any thoughts on this, how does it land?
Sasha, you want to say something?
I can unmute yourself. Okay. I'll just say, first of all, thank you for the inclusion today. It's really been a joy to listen to everybody and a lot of new faces for me. I have so much to say about everything that was shared, and it was really nice to just sit back and just listen today. So I really appreciate that. And for me, the emergence is that I've been very behind the scenes for the past couple of years working. And so I'm now connecting a lot more again with community. And this was really wonderful because I think everybody was a new face today. So really nice to see a lot of new faces. And so thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else want to share something? Arnaud, are you there? He's probably off. Okay. Well, if nobody else wants to share, then I'm going to leave the closing for you, Alex.
Oh, well, I feel, again, it's so nice to connect absolutely with everyone. I'm so grateful also. I sit with the gratitude. I mean, for me, it's early morning on Sunday. And what a great way to start the day. I could do this every day. And there's so much from that, everything that was said today, so many insights. And again, I invite you to join the community if you're not already there. Also to connect with each other as well on your own social media. And yeah, I look forward to more. And to the Year of the Horse, I think that starts in a couple of weeks, 2 or 3 weeks. So I'm ready for it.
Thank you, Alex. And meanwhile, Arnaud showed up. Arnaud, how was the afternoon for you?
There's so much been shared. I have some, sound is not returning for me. Do you have a problem with the sound? Can you hear me correctly?
Sound is good, yeah.
Okay. So yes, so many things have been shared, and it needs time for me to let it sink in and to work on it. So many ideas emerged and popped up also for me. One of the things that I relate to or I can share is on people experiencing projects, emerging, seeds being planted, and it feels a bit like 2026 is going to be a year where this all starts to grow. One of the things I experience is that many of these projects, if you want to let them grow organically, you can just attend to them from time to time, but not try to grasp them, not try to hold them. And if you give space, if you slow down, you meet people who have very similar projects. So I believe that these kind of seeds, that they are sketches that you make, you give to the world, and then the world gives something back to you. But it's just a sketch, so it's incomplete. And other people can have a very similar seed or the same project and another part of the sketch. So what I find is for several of my projects, when they're incomplete and I just wait and I give it space, that suddenly other people arrive that are completing it. So it's not just, you're not the owner, it's not just your project anymore. It suddenly becomes so much bigger. And a lot of the questions or the unknown parts suddenly get resolved because someone else or another group of people enters the field. And I think that's important because many people try to take care of the project on their own. They think it's theirs and they're the source and they want to tend to it and they want to grasp it and control it and letting go and then accept them that it's sometimes not just your seed, but that it's shared. I think if it's something true, then it's definitely shared and it's definitely synchronized with other people also. And when you find those people, then things can grow without taking too much of your own resources, because you tend to it together in groups. This is one of the things that I want to share here.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point, though. How can we be a community of contribution and not of extraction? Where we contribute to life for life to flourish instead of always wanting something out of it. So it's a whole mindset shift that needs to happen for that. So, and yeah, we are happy that we can help curate that and make that happen. Isabel, I see you there. Do you want to share something yourself? You're on mute.
Thank you very much. I don't have much to share because I came late. I actually was sharing a spiritual ceremony with a friend from another faith, and we had the very same strong experience. And I feel we are really going above boundaries, silos. And I feel like we are bounding at a very deeper weaving level. I fully connect with what Anu said about making space and slowing down. It sounds like a paradox for the fire horse here, but I think the grounded people will seize the opportunities. We are here for the long run. We are planting the other seed that is going to grow. So I feel we are the compost ourselves for these trees. Thank you very much for hosting this space. I've been sitting in silence, and I really worship silence more and more. So I've been listening to all of your energies, and I loved it.
Thank you. Then I'm gonna, thank everyone for your participation, the podcast guest community, everyone who contributed. Feel free to, keep following us. There will be more podcasts coming soon. We have some amazing guests that we're going to interview soon. Samina Sweetwater next week, who just released the book True Human. We have Mina Salami coming up, who's the Afro-feminist. And this week we did Céline Cousteau, which is one of the granddaughters of Jacques Cousteau. And they were all doing amazing work. So I feel very hopeful. I feel also very blessed to be able to do this work and to be able to connect people globally. And, Alex and I, we will be here for you to, create a structure for you to thrive.
Sing no more words.